it's working. And we are live. Good morning, beautiful people all around the world in Malta. And I'm here with Jeff Gallas. Jeff, you're in Berlin, right?
Yes, good morning. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yes, it's a great pleasure because Jeff, you're a really fun guy. Whenever I meet you, we have some jokes to tell. We have some laughs. It's always nice to meet.
Yeah, and it's usually on coincidence somewhere in the world, right?
Um, Jeff, you were born and raised in Berlin?
No, I'm German, East
You
German, but not from Berlin. But
all
I've
right.
been living in Berlin for a while.
How do you enjoy Berlin so far?
It's my favorite city. I wouldn't know where else to live in the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
Especially everything is great. Not only, but also to big parts the crypto scene and especially the Bitcoin scene, but everything else is fitting together nicely. It's a beautiful city to be in. Great people. It's still affordable. The great people usually. I mean, some people are the Berliners are sometimes you have to have some time to get accustomed to them, but then you adapt, and there's a certain benefit in being mean sometimes.
Yes,
No, but overall, it's great people. I would recommend coming to Berlin at least for a visit and checking it out for yourself if you haven't been here. Which, if
Great.
you're in crypto, I highly doubt that you haven't been in Berlin yet.
I think in Malta, still people Berlin is not so much on the radar maybe. And I see your T-shirt is from Paralelnipolis from Prague. It's where we also meet many times.
That's right. They're doing a really great job. The Institute of Crypto Anarchy, and I don't know if I mean you know it, and maybe the viewers don't know it, but it's definitely worth checking out. It's a whole house dedicated to crypto anarchy and cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Litecoin, Monero. They only accept Bitcoin and crypto payments, and they have a great annual conference, the Hackers Congress Paralelnipolis, which has been sold out for a month now. But if you can get a ticket somehow, I think they still open to like speaker applications end tomorrow or in 2 days. But if you want to go there, you should maybe apply to be a speaker, and then you still have a chance to go.
Yeah, you know the problem is I couldn't have I forgot to get a ticket, so I applied for speaker, but I didn't follow up. So maybe last minute I get a chance. No, this is really I also recommend this conference hcpp.cz I think is the website. It's one of the best, and I think in the next year they will probably book it out 5 years in advance already. You know, because
possibly
wants to go there. And Prague, this Institute for Crypto Anarchy. I think why the reason why Prague is so advanced in crypto is maybe it has a historic relevance also that it's there's a freedom spirit maybe in the city, but I think it makes sense to have such a place, such a driving institution. Also, just recently looked up the adoption of Bitcoin ATMs. Prague is in the top 5, I think, countries in the world. Even it's like 60 ATMs in Czech Republic. So it's really much on the forefront in that regard. In Berlin, is there also like a driving institute or like one main hub? And what's holding it back that we don't have Bitcoin ATMs there? That's maybe not as adopted yet.
Well, the thing is, Berlin was really early, or Germany in general, but I think it was mainly driven in Berlin with Bitcoin adoption, and we had this whole area where a bunch of merchants and brick and mortar stores accepted Bitcoin as payment back in 2011, 12, 13. So a couple of years back.
It was a timing problem. They were just too early.
No. They were not too early. It sounds like it failed, but in my point of view, it was a success. It served as a media anchor. Lots of media outlets were reporting about it. We produced tons of interviews and media coverage and TV shows, and other cities got inspired and followed our example. And we also tried to install Bitcoin ATMs. And there was one early one, a Lamasu machine in room 77. But a couple of weeks after, or maybe a couple of months after it was announced, the owner of the place got a letter from the Bundesbank, if I recall correctly. And they didn't say, you're not allowed to have this, but please tell us why you are allowed to have this. And whenever you talk to the Bundesbank, it's not just a casual conversation like we're having right now, but you actually have to pay a couple lawyers to talk to them and like really think about what you say. So it's really expensive to talk to them. So at this point in time, it wasn't really worth it to just pay a couple €1,000 to say, hey, this is why we can't have it, and maybe it would have worked out. So we were just like, okay, this is just an experiment. It was more like a hacking machine, and we're just going to take it down now because we don't have the time to deal with this. And so apparently, it's due to, despite what people say, it's not illegal to have a Bitcoin ATM in Germany. It just is, I would say, highly regulated, and there's always companies working on, like in the background, putting some ATMs up, and this year might become probably, I mean, this year is close to over in that regard, but maybe we're going to see a couple of Bitcoin ATMs next year, because it's becoming more and more clear what you need to put up one and run one. And so I guess it is a business in other parts in the world, and not a bad business for that if you put it in like next to a train station or an airplane, or like highly frequented places, malls, airports, whatever. So we will probably still see it, but I would say the regulatory uncertainty in Germany, also paired with the sometimes not too entrepreneurial spirit of the main German population, has been holding that back.
Okay, interesting. You mentioned the lawyers that you need in order to talk to the Bundesbank. So that's interesting. I mean, like the Bundesbank is sort of a public institution. I mean, the money is, I think, should be seen as a sort of public or part of really important part of our commerce, and like it's sort of public, no? So why do you need so many lawyers to talk to them? And now I wanna also ask you, because you studied law, right, in Berlin. How was your shift from studying this and then doing something completely different?
Well, the first question, I might have phrased this a little controversial. What you do not by law need a lawyer to talk to the Bundesbank, but it's just recommended, because if you actually want something from them and you want to do it right, a regular person is not capable of doing that, just because there's so many rules and regulations to follow. So if you want to do it right, you should get a lawyer, and this is going to cost money. So if you want to talk like on the same level to the Bundesbank, you should do that through a lawyer. Of course, you can talk to them privately, but it's probably just going to be a big headache because you're going to make so many mistakes. So de facto, you need to pay a bunch of money to talk to them. Of course, you can write a letter every day and like call them every day and talk to them. You will reach somebody, but it's not going to be productive, and you're not going to reach anything, most likely. I mean, never say never, but it's going to be a lot of work, and the shortcut is at least to take a lawyer.
Okay.
And for me personally, I started studying law because it was one of the ways to get a good general overall education in university, I would say, because law is, despite what everybody says, a pretty wide field, and you get to have a look into numerous fields and lots of different areas. So you can also see it as a studium generale, which covers a lot of topics. Of course, there's a lot of law-specific stuff, but what it enables you to do is just to, at least in Germany, to be able to work in every legal field. You can, once you've finished the studies, you can become anything that's related to law. You're not specialized, but you're you're generalist, and you only specialize later throughout your career. So that's what made me want to study this in the first place. But what I'm describing again was also what kind of held me back, because you see so many things, and it's sometimes really hard to see which one is the proper one, and you get tangled up in lots of academic discussions and paperwork, if you will, and writings which don't always make sense. So I personally just, along the way, looking at so many different things, found Bitcoin and found this way more interesting.
When did you first encounter Bitcoin? What time was that, and like how did that work?
Well, I think it was around the time when, in 2011, when the Silk Road made news and it was going through all those major publications. I think the Gawker article started this whole wave, and I just read it on some newspaper pretty much and did some more research and was hooked. I mean, you've heard the story before, pretty much everybody says it, but I read about it and I couldn't stop reading about it, and I haven't stopped reading and working on it ever since. So it's been going on for a while.
What was your motivation? What was your drive? What was the interesting side? Was it like were you interested in finance, in economics, or was it more like the libertarian approach that you saw it as a tool to change society, or where did your motivation come from?
I think it was a mix of everything. I mean, for example, I had looked at e-gold before that, so I was already, it's just one example, but I was already sort of accustomed to different payment methods. I've been playing some poker, I guess. So this is also like the gambling part is, I wouldn't deny that this also has like a certain attraction, but also the whole libertarian spirit was really attractive, and I think even Bitcoin, and this is probably true for me as well, opened this whole new world of thinking also for a lot of people, because it's just not something that you usually see or read a lot about in what you want to call mainstream society. So hanging out on Bitcoin Talk and like reading all these discussions and philosophical, but it just like everything kind of fit together.
But at the time, I think it still requires kind of like a special personality to be open to this idea, and to not say, okay, like this is just funny money and like I believe in, I don't believe in it. So were you working for a company at the time, or you were already like trying to set up your own business, playing poker, making money?
I was working for a media outlet at the time, so I had a lot of time to sit in front of a computer and research and read, and actually being paid for that. So, and when I read it, I talked to a friend who was also into this kind of stuff, and we built our first miner together, and just tried everything that was there to try. I also started my own little T-shirt store and tried to sell like some Bitcoin swag, and went to the first conferences just to try as many things as possible. So I didn't really necessarily go for, like, it wasn't really straight. I didn't say like, I have to run a business out of this. I just tried to experiment and learn as much as possible, and then tried a couple of different things over the years. And now it's Lightning.
Yeah, we will speak about it. If you're a complete beginner, complete novice to Bitcoin, what is your recommendation to do? Or maybe, as a fellow Bitcoin community member, global community member, I think it's everyone's obligation to educate other people. So what is your best explanation of Bitcoin, maybe in like a few sentences?
I always like Andreas Antonopoulos' explanation. Bitcoin is the internet of money, or money for the internet and the internet of money. That's pretty much sums it up nicely. Or you can go into depth and like talk about it forever and ever. But I think I don't want to bore your audience, and I think everybody watching this has a pretty good understanding of what Bitcoin is already in a way.
Yeah, so I'll just explain to guide into the Lightning thing. For me, it's digital money, and it's based on the blockchain, which is a public database. You probably can correct me if you know better. And now the interesting part is, since all these transactions are on this blockchain, that it has certain limits towards scalability, and that leads to what we're talking about now, which is called Lightning Network. So maybe you can summarize again, what is the original problem? Why do we need Lightning Network, and what are we talking about as a field?
Okay, so when I said Bitcoin is the internet of money, of course, it's much more of a philosophical concept. More technically speaking, it is what people say distributed ledger. sort of a public accounting system based on the Bitcoin blockchain, and the blockchain is a chain of blocks, and each block is a bundle of transactions, pretty much. And by linking these transactions, they're building up on each other, which creates a chain of transactions which are interdependent, and because they are, you cannot change an earlier block or an earlier transaction without invalidating the whole chain. So, and this validation is done by on a global level by many different actors, nodes and miners. And since it's distributed, so it's comparable to BitTorrent in a way that the blockchain is a file containing lots of transactions, and every participant has a copy of this transaction. So this is in some way now limited by space and internet speed and a couple of other factors. So currently one bundle of transactions is limited to, I think the correct number is something like 3.5 megabyte. And so originally 1 megabyte, let's, for the ease of argument, let's say it's limited to 1 megabyte after, so you can only put a certain number of transactions into one block. And no matter what this number is, it's always limited in some way. And what you want to have is you want to put these blocks to as many participants as possible, because every participant individually validates these blocks and see if they are coherent with the prior blocks and if they're still correct.
And they are downloaded through the internet, so they can't.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a certain limitation to them for everybody to have them. Now, each block can only hold a couple thousand transactions, and don't nail me down on the numbers because they're always a little different depending on what source you're looking at. But let's say like currently there's 10 to 15, maybe 20 transactions per second on Bitcoin possible. 2,000 to 4,000 transactions per block, and each block is on approximately every 10 minutes. So there has been a debate going on how to solve this, and there's pretty much like the mainstream. So there's like a main point of view, which is no matter how you could just easily make the blocks bigger and say instead of 1 megabyte we do 2 or 5, 4 or 8 or whatever, but the same limitations will hold up. You will always be limited to, let's say, 100 transactions per second, 1,000 transactions per second, while possibly weakening the network, because it's at a certain size of the blocks. It's not possible for every participant to validate the blocks by themselves anymore.
But that will be important. So it's decentralized and censorship resistant. So
exactly, because you can be your own bank in Bitcoin. This is a nice saying, but you actually are your own bank. You can validate your own transactions on your own computer, on your own laptop, and this is an important feature. And if you basically, I don't want to like bring up this whole debate again because it's been going on for a couple of years. I just wanted to like
No, I mean, the original, maybe I'll tell you the original problem is, of course, you said how many transactions per second?
Yeah, let me finish this thought. So comparing, if you look at it as digital cash or financial transaction and not necessarily digital gold, and the problem is compared to the dinosaur financial networks, they can do a lot more transactions. Visa, MasterCard, they can do 50,000 transactions per second easily, or at least they have been known to do that in peak times. So no matter how big you make the blocks, it will always be really hard to reach those numbers, and they are not as easy to scale up. So what people are looking at, and this I would consider nowadays the mainstream position, is that you take the blockchain, the base layer, as a secure foundation, and you build other layers on top of that foundation, and use the blockchain only as a settlement layer if you have a dispute. And this is where solutions like the Lightning Network, so-called second layer solutions, come in. They build a complete new network, but they are anchored in the original blockchain, which means that you pretty much, I like to compare to sort of a house, or so the base layer is the foundation of a house, and you have a really good lower level, and all the transactions are working nicely. But since you have such a strong foundation, you can build up a high tower on it, and every tower has several. In every tower, on every level, you can build different applications, like the Lightning Network, and every level works independently of each other. But if there is a problem, you go down to the base layer and you tell them, "Hey guys, I have a problem. Could you look at my transaction?" They say, "Yes, of course. Of course, this is automated and trustless." That's nice. Yes, but you can build a lot of levels up until like where you can't even see my hand anymore, and it's all based on this foundational layer. Whereas if you would just enhance the layer, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and this is sort of not really good engineering. It might be possible, but for now, I think it's good to say that sort of the mainstream or the majority of the people working on Bitcoin on a protocol level have decided that it makes more sense to add layers and not try to just broaden the foundation. That doesn't mean they're not working on the foundation, but it's sort of more clever engineering to make the foundation stronger and also make it more durable, but not simply by changing a couple numbers and just spreading it out.
At the last Bitcoin meetup, we had an open mic session, and one speaker mentioned that Bitcoin is the only ICO, the only coin that doesn't have a marketing team, a focused professional marketing execution. So I see the problem that most people don't know anything about Lightning Network. So if beginners come into the cryptocurrency or blockchain field, they look at the ICOs, they want to make a lot of money. And so Lightning is kind of very unknown. However, on the other side, everyone who is really since the early days into Bitcoin and who's close to the core developers, the Bitcoin maximalists, those people they see Lightning as one of the most promising technologies. Can you give us a very simple overview of Lightning Network for someone who doesn't know anything about it?
The Lightning Network is pretty much just an upgrade to Bitcoin, so it's not its own coin. I think so Bitcoin is really two things. There's on one point there is Bitcoin the cryptocurrency, but also there's Bitcoin the base layer. And we're not talking about, Lightning is still Bitcoin the currency, but for the base layer, it's sort of an upgrade. It enhances the base layer, it enhances the protocol. And what it does is it's a network based on payment channels. A payment channel is pretty much a connection between you and me, for example. We're opening a channel. We each put some money in it because we want to do future commerce. I would want to buy a gummy bear every day from you, but instead of giving you 1 cent every day for your gummy bear, I just say I put €1 down, and every time we have a gummy bear transaction, I send you 1 cent. And this goes on until the channel is depleted. And now maybe you want to have a lollipop from me, and it's 5 cents, and I give you the lollipop, and you pay me 5 cents, but it's in the same channel. And since this channel is opened on the Bitcoin blockchain, we don't change the channel, but just the state of the channel. So we just keep the balance, you and me, to say, and every time a penny is or a cent changes ownership, we just change our balance sheet. And only once we say we don't want to do commerce anymore, we're done trading gummy bears and lollipops, we close the channel and settle this on the blockchain and have a final transaction. Now, in the Lightning Network is a network of those payment channels. So instead of me connecting to everybody I want to do commerce with, it's enough to connect to maybe you and maybe somebody else. And then you are connected to, let's say, your gummy bear supplier, And if I would want to say, hey, I wanted to buy 10 gummy bears and don't want to buy from you, but from your supplier directly, I could go to your supplier, you would send me the gummy bears, and I would route the payment through you to your gummy bear supplier. And of course, this is just like an APC hub, what I just described. But you can, I mean, it's a network currently thousands of participants. There's roughly 3,000 nodes and 10,000 channels opened. So currently, as we're speaking, it's a network of 10,000 different channels, and there's roughly 100 Bitcoin kind of dedicated to that network, where people said, like, we want to do possible commerce that totals 100 Bitcoin. That's already, maybe I was that's already the basic explanation. That's pretty much all. Like, there is the Lightning Network is a network of payment channels.
All right. I mean, it will get more technical, and we can only scratch the surface, at least in this interview. And now we come to the final point, basically. So you're hosting an event in Berlin called Lightning Hackday, if I'm correct. Yes, and there people can dive in. We talked about the number of transactions. So I would say the goal, is like really millions of transactions per second. So if Visa can do 50K, it would be great if Bitcoin can do 50 million per second or something, just because it's better technology. Would you say its Lightning Network is already as promising, that it's really realistic that this can happen with the technology, and maybe you can bring it together with your event? So
yeah, let me just maybe add something to the Lightning Network. Since it's a second layer, you can also add a couple of new features. And so what it basically does is improvements. It does allow for more payments, but since you do not put every payment on the blockchain, which comes with the cost, you have a lot less costs, and since you only update the payments between a couple participants, you can also do faster payments. So pretty much Lightning payments are instant and near, only cost a fraction of a cent or are free, depending on what the nodes are asking for. So which also adds more privacy, because you do not finalize every transaction on the blockchain, but only a couple nodes or a couple of hubs know or have the potential to know what kind of payment is being routed and where it goes. So you have added transaction capabilities. You have new ways of doing transactions, microtransactions, really small fractions of a cent. You can, for some implementations, the standard unit is a millisatoshi. So we're not talking satoshis, which is the smallest unit in Bitcoin, but a thousandth of that. So it's really, really tiny payments that are possible, but at the same time regular payments are also possible in an upper way. You can easily do $100, $500, $1,000 worth of payments over the Lightning Network. So what we're trying to do with the Lightning Hackday is open up a forum, a platform where people who are interested in technology can meet. And it's going pretty good so far. This is the third one. It's on September 1st in Berlin. And we have all major implementations represented there. So for Lightning, there is a specification, sort of a paper everybody relies on, which kind of defines the standards. And then there's a couple of implementations that write code and try to build their own software based on that specification. And all of the major implementations will be there and present and discuss and have their developers there. But also we'll have just an interested audience. We have so-called lab developers, which is short for Lightning app. We'll have a bunch of companies and exchanges who have already implemented Lightning as a payment and just want to know more and get in touch with the community. Right now, we're really early phase, where I always feel that we're seeing this sort of same infrastructure building and energy and positive energy that we had in 2011, 12, 13, when everybody was really excited and a lot of products were possible but not built out, and you didn't have, there was you still had like to learn about the limitations. But also there were so many possibilities, and so many businesses were built on these possibilities, and so many, like this whole ecosystem was just created just because Bitcoin came in existence. And if you just look at the last couple of years, this whole ICO craze wouldn't have been possible without Bitcoin. And I see Lightning as a new way of bringing this whole ecosystem forward, and the most promising one. So we're right now, I think, in an early beta state where it's mostly attractive for developers and future businesses. It's not so much interesting for the mainstream audience yet. The mainstream applications are still being thought of and still being built out, and it's probably going to take more time. But it always depends on what you're personally asking for. You can already use, a lot of people are already using Lightning. There's this great example of Satoshi's Place, which is this website where you can buy one pixel for one Satoshi, and people are doing collaborative art and mostly drawing penises on the internet because I guess everybody is a child inside. So all these people, these thousands of users that are using Satoshi's Place, for them, Lightning already works.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's a showcase, and it's not the final use case that's going to abolish Visa or the ECB, but it's a first step forward, and we're living in fun times, and it's really cool to see all this enthusiasm, all these great people working together, and more and more people coming in, and not only from all like parts of the world and all parts of life, with academics and startup founders and developers, and again more of this sort of rougher, more idealistic people that we had in Bitcoin in the early days, which I think is fun to work with, and because there's so many different interesting characters before it becomes kind of more mainstream as it has become in the last 1 or 2 or 3 years, where you have all these ICOs and people coming in that call themselves traders after making $100 on Binance after being there for 2 days or whatever. So yeah, that's the main motivation, and it's pretty much just what we did with the Lightning Hackday is we just wanted to learn about it, about the Lightning Network. So we started a barcamp, unconference, hackathon, and people seem to like it. So we're doing it for the 3rd time now, and it's pretty much just a meeting of friends on an international level in a cool city, and everybody can talk about Bitcoin and Lightning all day long, which I guess a lot of people like to do. But now we can do it in person again.
What is a barcamp? What is an unconference?
Okay, barcamp and unconference pretty much the same thing. It's the idea is that you come there in the morning, bringing your own idea, your own problem, your own presentation, workshop, whatever you want to do. You announce it on the stage briefly, and if people like it or are not opposed, you get scheduled for 30 minutes or an hour. You get a room, and then you go to this room and hold your. It's pretty much, it's like a conference, but topics are not set, speakers are not set, and everybody who comes in is allowed to or even expected to contribute something in a way that other people can learn from him or her. So yeah, I mean it's sort of a really democratic conference that is not scheduled before it happens. And we do, like, if you look at the website, lightninghackday.fulmo.org, we do have a couple scheduled speakers because, I guess for especially international audience, it's always good to see that somebody is actually coming. And we have some great pre-scheduled speakers like Christian Decker and Johan Halsett from Lightning Labs. A song is coming, Fabrice Durand, and we even have Nayuta from Japan coming. They've been doing some tests with the Japanese electrical company for charging self-driving electrical cars via Lightning, and a couple other really interesting people that we have put up as official speakers. But this is only 1/4 of the actually program in the actual schedule that is happening. And most of the stuff that's going to happen, we don't know yet. It's only going to happen during the day, and it's been working out pretty nicely during the last event. So because everybody is so interested, everybody has to say something and share something, and even if it's just and we're also trying to explain the Lightning Network for people who already have a good understanding of Bitcoin, but give some introductions. So you can also use this day as to say, hey, finally, I've heard so much about it, but I never really found the time to really understand how it works. So we also give people the chance to really understand the Lightning Network and have it explained in person. And we have the people there that did, in fact, invent the Lightning Network. So you can ask the creators, if you will. Meet the gods.
Awesome. Sounds awesome.
No, just kidding. Of course. Yeah.
I have another question, which is, you mentioned that in the early days, people came up, of course, Bitcoin is open source. It is global. It is based on contribution and eternal improvement and stuff. But there are very successful businesses. And maybe if we compare it to any other market, usually you have a startup and then you have a very good idea and you're anticipating correctly what will happen and how technology will be applied. And then you work on it for 2 years and then a big corporation comes and does it, with a finger snip, and they can roll it out with the existing distribution channel and just take it over. And if you're lucky, you made an exit maybe, or you were successful to build up on your niche and to kind of gain some significant market share. And now in Bitcoin, it's similar, I would say. I mean, there are now big companies and also even established players who look into it, but who are maybe a bit afraid because it is disruption in the very sense that disruption that makes old patterns, old markets obsolete. And I think how do you personally see how will businesses built upon Bitcoin when this very profitable business model doesn't exist anymore to charge interest on money that you can create in a very easy way to frame it easy and to frame it simple. Do you see my point that Bitcoin is open source and it's driven by developers who just contribute, and not necessarily, you don't necessarily need a business because you can click a button and you have a bank account. Why do I need a business for this? There's no margin, basically. There's no value creation needed because it's already there. You can use it. Or what also now with Lightning, is this the place where you see a lot of businesses happening? If we look, for example, I think the idea of a bank based on Bitcoin would be to run and supervise a Lightning channel, maybe something like this. What is your view on this?
Well, it's 2 questions, isn't it? First,
I always ask many questions, and I leave it up to the other person to answer whatever comes to your mind.
So first is I don't think this is really, like, coming back to the question of whether Bitcoin is going to disrupt and maybe even destroy the banking system. I don't think this is like a black and white binary answer. There's room for everything, and all the different systems do have some pros and some cons. And for a lot of people, admittedly, the banking system works. It's not perfect and it has a lot of downcomings. And for other people in other countries, it doesn't work as much. So what Bitcoin really did is it gave, for many people, for the first time in their lives, it gave a choice. You do have an alternative. You don't need to go to central bank money or even retail banks, but you can transact on a global level without permission and without censorship. So I think it just adds in as another choice, and I don't think it's necessarily going to take over the whole world, because then it would become a choke point by itself and a monopoly, and I think that's a good thing. So the important thing is that people have a choice here, and if it's a better choice, and then more people will. And if you look at the long game, maybe in 100 years, our great grandchildren will ask themselves, like, how could they ever do something like a central banking system. This is crazy. Or maybe not. We don't know. But if you look at open source, has a lot of advantages, but there's also certain needs and necessities that aren't served by open source. In real life, I mean, and in real life, it's not always about theory, but also about practice. And sometimes people are lazy. People don't know everything. People don't have the time to get educated. People don't care if it works. It works, and maybe it's not the better system. Maybe it's more expensive, but maybe it's just convenient enough. Maybe PayPal, that's one of these examples. Maybe it's convenient enough to be used by a majority of people. And even though Bitcoin is better, ideologically or theoretically, it's not it's not more convenient for people to change. And just as an example, so I think Bitcoin and crypto already have their place, and it will get bigger and bigger. And through new use cases like Lightning and through further research and advances, it will become the better alternative, even more so. But it will take time. And we shouldn't be impatient, but we should build and not always look at price and get distracted by daily minor interferences. So it's really a long-term picture that I would look at, and this might even be a multi-generation project. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to happen tomorrow or the day after tomorrow or even next year. It's going to take a while. So, and the second question is, at least I sense a sort of already Lightning-specific question. You were asking about banks becoming the central hubs, as it is always called, and just taking this new model and adapting it to their old model and using their de facto power to kind of plug themselves into this new system and just become a new player. And from a technical point of view, this might be possible. I think the main concern here is that it becomes a censorable network where all the nodes are sort of controlled. But is that your concern, or because that's one concern you hear a lot?
No, it was more about your answer before about how do you make money with it? Should you make money with it? Is it a business case or is it an open source project? Which you answered, yeah, it will, will be probably maybe you have to pay for a Lightning channel or.
Well, I mean, part of that's, I guess, also what we're doing with the Lightning Hackday is finding out how a business can use Lightning and Bitcoin as an open source platform to make money. And this is mostly provide, as it looks like, if you provide additional services that have a benefit to the users, they are willing to pay for it. And we're really early. Like, there's so many business cases that people are thinking about and working on the surface. But once if people now see a business case, they actually have to do all the hard work of technology, of the coding and the programming and the technological side, maybe even protocol development. It's not something you can right now plug and play and just use for your existing business, but you actually have to put some time and money into the technology and into helping the technology develop. So it's nothing you can use as a toolkit yet. We're building this toolkit. And of course, whoever is building the toolkit will have easier access to the tools, and in the long term, will be able to use the tools to build a business. But if you just sit it out and wait for 5 years, you will also have the tools. You might just not have the advantage we could be having right now. And big corporations, they might see that as well, and they might just take the tools in a couple of years and throw a lot of money at it. But historically speaking, this doesn't always work. Just because you have a lot of money and expertise doesn't mean that you will be successful in a certain area. You have this example of Microsoft they built sort of an iPhone precursor years ago, before the iPhone was even thought of. But they failed because there's probably a bunch of good videos and reads about why it failed, but they had the right idea, but even though they were a big corporation, it didn't automatically mean they were successful with their product. They was successful just 5 years later.
Okay, cool. Now I don't want to I don't want to end with a negative picture, so maybe a positive question again for the last one. Yeah,
I have a positive view. We're not after building for a whole day on the Lightning Network. Then that's the fun part. We're all going to go to room 77 and get drunk. Is that positive enough? No, yes. But we've like this whole event is not. It's also about building a community and meeting all the people and talking to them, getting access. It's not all hard work. It's also hard play.
Would you say this is part of the Bitcoin lifestyle, that it's, they don't wear suits, they don't work super extreme hours, they want to paint penis out of pixels, they want to have whatever CryptoKitties, and they want to have a more happy atmosphere and drink some beers also, because this is this is what some people criticize, that Bitcoin is still not seen as professional enough. Because people are people. Would you see this is a big advantage, that this gives a lot of freedom and creativity, that it's out of this corporate environment?
People are working hard. A lot of smart people are working really hard to make this happen and put in a lot of work, even unpaid work, just because they really like the project. They like to work with other smart people, and they don't necessarily care about a regular paycheck. They do care about money, and especially sound money, and that's why they're working on Bitcoin and Lightning. For the Lightning Hackday, everybody who's coming, some people are taking vacation from their regular jobs. Everybody's paying to come to stay in Berlin on their own. Everybody's paying out of their own pocket. We don't have the funds to reimburse everybody. Even the official speakers, they're all coming here because they share the enthusiasm and they want to use this chance to connect with the community. So the whole Lightning Hackday is a community effort. Everybody, we have regular participants flying in even from Japan. They don't have a regular speaker slot. They just come here because they like the project and they want to learn more and they want to connect. So I would say this community is driven by curiosity, by will to build, by they want to see some change and they want to be part of the change. And they also want to work with mostly really smart and really cool, but also diverse people. And of course, a certain fun part is something you need. It can't be all work, but it's not that they're not serious or they don't want to do the work. It's just that I guess they want to work differently, and it's really it's a global. Bitcoin is sort of a global corporation, if you will, and that's the way it works. It's not traditional, of course, and every company that works on Bitcoin is just a subdivision of Bitcoin, the first DAO, if you will. So even if it might look from the outside like nobody's working in a traditional sense, I think a lot of people are working very hard and putting in a lot of time. And even though it might look like a hobby sometimes from the outside, I mean, just focusing on one thing 10 hours a day is something a lot of people don't do. And all this reading and watching videos and reviewing stuff and testing software and going to meetups and doing conferences and all that is something that adds in its value to Bitcoin. And this is also about marketing. What you said in the beginning, Bitcoin doesn't have any centralized authorities that do marketing or do business development, but it has a really decentralized way of doing it. It has hundreds of people and companies doing marketing, and it's all in a different way. And that's why it's sometimes so hard and so chaotic. But this is also why, in my opinion, it's still thriving, and it's so powerful and has so much innovation. That's what really makes it unique, and that's why I really like to be in this space. And because every day I wake up, I'm seeing something new, and I read something new and interesting, and meet new interesting people. And the Lightning Hackday is sort of a culmination of that. It's just one day where all this happens. The stuff that happens usually in a month happens in a day, which is even cooler. It's like total mind blow.
Awesome, Jeff. It was really great talking to you. You gave a lot of very interesting insights, and especially explaining your motivation, I think is very, very very promising, very motivating, very beautiful to see. Thank you so much. I definitely post the link in the description so everybody can sign up who is interested.
Yeah.
And I'm sending you some regards to Berlin.
Well, hi to Malta. Enjoy the sun. I hope there's sun.
Yes, we are. I mean, at the moment I'm in Vienna, but yeah, we'll go out to Malta for sure. Yeah, thanks so much. My last words, as usual, are buy Bitcoin, be free, no financial advice, and see you in the next video.
To blockchain.